By the way, are there any question about what was mentioned in the Khatira? Yes, Khalid. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. One thing, yeah, let me just talk about this. So on the Khatira, the brother is asking, isn't it the number of the Israeli casualties a factor into this? In fact, the media did mention this, although I don't think really it's a major factor because if it was a factor, it means that the war will be coming to an end. There will be more casualties. And for them to even hint to this will be a major defeat. Yes, there are news that some of those who are injured in Gaza made it clear we are not going to go back. Who are being treated, we are not going to go back. I mean, they made it clear. There are also, families. In fact, they took a step of saying they will not give the soldiers any permit for a break. Like, you could take, 1 week off, or they are not giving because they thought that if they're going to go to their families, they are not going to come back. And it would be, emotional, this and that. So, yeah, as I said, the media have mentioned that's one of the reasons. Now, I will take it one step further. If indeed this was an issue and that the morale will go to so low, in fact, what would happen is that they will try to use this period to extend it and then come say, well, we are under tremendous international pressure and this and this and that, and they will find a way out to really end the hostilities. But I don't think so. Because as I said, we have to understand what happened on October 7. October 7 shook the foundation, shook the conscience, shook the mere existence of this Zionist entity. I mean, they are saying nothing like this happened to us in the past 80 years. Although they had wars with Egypt and Syria and Jordan and the PLO, and they come and said, what happened the first day, we have not experienced it in the whole, and the media, the Israeli media, not just the opposite media, keep talking about this. So as I said, this is a factor being mentioned in the media. I do not buy it, because if that's the case, this thing will be indefinitely. But it's a factor. Where come on the list, Allah knows. Yes. What's the other one? Okay, the question about the West Bank and the settler violation. They are cutting trees, all of the trees. They are attacking villages. They are attacking people, and they are calling, distributing papers, pamphlets calling for the Palestinian people to go to Jordan. And that's what you're referring to, right? Okay, what we need to understand is until October 7, the government that started December 22 until October 7, they went on an extensive attempt to fill the West Bank with more and more settlers and more settlements. So between December and October 7, for example, they changed the rules. Before this, what they used to do the following. If they want to establish settlements, there are 6 steps. The government put 6 steps, and then the Supreme Court people can appeal. For example, they come and take my land and your land, and they want to establish a settlement. There are 6 steps that the government has to follow. And at the end, you can go to the Supreme Court and ask for your land back and say, this is on my land. Now, the whole process was reduced to two steps. One step is the planning committee. And the other step is the signature of who? Smotrich. And Smotrich is, with Ibn Ghaffir, we mentioned, they are, in fact, they are the one who voted against this truce. Smotrich is the one who said the Palestinians have a choice. Either they leave this country, or they accept to be subjugated to us, or we will kill them. So, yes, the settlers and the settlement movement is going at full speed, and you have seen in many occasions where the settlers go and burn villages and saying basically we need to, this is Smotrich, same guy, he said we should burn Huwara. Huwara is the village around Nablus. And what had happened is one member from the Huwara village killed a settler. So the reaction of Smotrich, we should burn Huwara. Now, those are the same people that keep talking about the Holocaust. It's just to show you how they are, thirsty. Those are bloodthirsty. They have no morals. I say they have no morals, not even to their own people. Now, even the Haaretz is saying that the people who were killed on October 7 were killed by Israeli fires. From the sky, a helicopter, just shoot, and shells coming from tanks. And those same guys are very upset that the Haaretz released this news, because they have been telling the world, Hamas killed the civilians, Hamas killed the civilians. It turned out that they killed their own civilians. So yes, the settlers will try to use this occasion to say, but that's why Netanyahu and others are saying, calm down, because this will worsen the situation internationally for the Zionists and also those so-called Arab governments that wants to save face. Think about it. I saw Ibn Salman reading a statement in South Africa. He was reading a statement saying, this hostility should stop. There is not an iota of of feeling. He's just reading it as if you're reading. Somebody wrote to him, said, look, we look bad. We look very bad. You need to say something. So they wrote something, and he was reading a newspaper. Look at, when Netanyahu speak, when Abu Ghraib speak, when somebody from Hamas speak, you can see this. Anyway, let's go back, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah, wa man tabi'ahu bi ihsanin ila yawm ad-din. First of all, I will need to welcome our brother Aqil, who is a speaker on this podium on Thursdays, on and off, coming back after 2 days of a major operation. That's a blessing of Allah that we see you here, brother. Alhamdulillah, as-salama. So today, we will go over this statement that the first casualty of war is the truth. And that's always right. That's always right. In fact, from the early days, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hadith says, Al-harbu khid'ah. Life is deception. Because basically you are dealing with your enemy. And how do you deal with this? I will give a few examples from the seerah, that the Prophet ﷺ, when he wanted to go north, he does not lie to the believers. He gives them the impression that he's going south. And then he go north. So in this regard, we also know what Nu'aym ibn Mas'ud did in the Ahzab battle when he went to the people of Quraysh, after realizing that the people of Quraysh have conspired with the Jews of Medina to break the agreement and attack the Prophet and Medina from behind and the Ahzab from up front. So Nu'aym ibn Mas'ud came to the Prophet ﷺ and declared his Islam. He said, Prophet, how can I help? He said, do what you can, because we are being surrounded. He said, look, neither Quraysh nor the Yahud know that, Bani Qurayza, know that I am a Muslim and I can make something. He said, go and do it. So he went to Quraysh and talk to them that really the Jews are not enthusiastic for this agreement. And they will have doubts about you and what you are doing. And they are thinking twice about even dealing with you. Then he went to the Bani Qurayza, who they know him and trust him. He said, by the way, those Quraysh and their people, they are not going to honor their agreement with you. For you to be sure that they honor their agreement, ask them to give you, some 20 men or 10 men of their men as, a collateral that this thing will happen. So when Quraysh met with the Banu Qurayza asked for those people, Quraysh said, Nu'aym is telling the truth. And that's what broke that agreement. So in here, when we look at the war in Gaza, we see lots of this. First of all, and again, this is not talking about how the fighting happened, because that's not the issue. The issue is how lies, how the media, how the deception is going on in this war. Before the war, what we know is for the last 2 years, the Hamas in Gaza gave the impression through Egypt to the Israelis, specifically to Netanyahu and his people, that they want to improve the economic situation in Gaza. So they ask for fuel, they ask for more trucks to come in, and they ask for more permits for people to walk inside the occupied territories. And before October 7, there were 20,000 from Gaza each day cross the border and go and work under those Zionist farms and factories and what have you. 20,000. And this is a record number. Because before that, they will give them, 1,000, 500, depends on the situation. But through Egypt, they told the Israelis that, look, we are done with the war. We want to rule Gaza and improve our situation, improve the condition of the people in there. That was a major deception. The second deception was, if you remember last year, when Sheikh Adnan Khadr, Allah yarhamu, died in the prison, and there was a small uprising in Jenin. That's where he's from. And the Israelis ended up going into Jenin and really destroying the infrastructure and the streets and this and that. At that point, there were a few missiles that came from Islamic Jihad, which is another organization in Gaza, that came to surrounding the atmosphere surrounding Gaza and some of those cities. As a result, Israel declared war on Islamic Jihad. Why? Because Hamas gave them the assurance, we are not part of this. Just do whatever you want with Hamas, with Islamic Jihad, we are not part of this. And the message was loud and clear. So when the Israelis kept hitting, they only hit fighters from Islamic Jihad. And they totally avoid a clash with anybody from Hamas. That was the second deception. Because they told them, look, we are not interested in this war. We told you, we need to build Gaza. We need to improve the economic situation in Gaza. So deal with the Islamic Jihad. This is not our fight. And, at the time, people start thinking, what's going on? What is going on? So this is very important, because it just gave the message to the Israelis that, oh, indeed, we do not want confrontation. I was in Palestine this past summer. A month and a half we came. Well, now the war has been going for a month and a half. We were there 3 weeks before the start of the war. And you would hear these jokes from BLO people, Abbas people, and Fatah people that Hamas is a tool in the hands of the Zionists, and Hamas now is more concerned about being in hotels and being in fancy, dinners and this and that than Palestine or the issue of Palestine. So again, this issue was there. In fact, even somebody like, myself, when I look and analyze, I have no explanation. So when somebody asked, what's going on? Why they would leave the Islamic, jihad for themselves and say to the Israelis, we have nothing to do with this. I really did not have an answer, or even, a guess in this regard, because it's clear that it cannot be an issue of economic development, because they could have asked Qatar, and Qatar will give them much more money. By the way, if you work in Gaza, you're going to get a few dollars a day. If you go and walk inside the occupied territory, you will get at least $100 a day. So you see the big difference between this and that. Same thing, if you work in the West Bank, you can get about 30, 40, maybe $50, depends what you can do. But if you go and walk inside under the Zionist, you're going to get $100 a day or even more. So that's why this issue was confusing. Now, there were Israelis pointing to Netanyahu and company that something is not right. In fact, the people who were watching what they call Ghilaf Gaza, the surrounding of Gaza, they kept saying something is not right, something is ongoing. And Netanyahu and company dismiss it. Dismiss it. And after October 7, it was made public that the head of the Egyptian intelligence, this is the Egyptians made it clear, the head of the Egyptian intelligence, called the office of Netanyahu and mentioned to them that Hamas is preparing for something in a few days. Netanyahu dismissed it. He said, I did not hear it. Nobody contacted us. This is one of the lies, by the way, because 2 or 3 days after that lie, a congressman came out of briefings of the US intelligence, or lack of it. He came from that briefing and said, we were told by the Egyptian that Hamas is preparing an attack. So Netanyahu was exposed naked in this regard, and that was another lie of him. So all these things were happening before the war. Now, when October 7 happened, Hamas released so many videos that showed their fighters, the disciplined fighters, who were well trained, what they have done. They took over 3 major bases, military bases, disabled so many tanks, so many armed carriers, and so on and so forth. And they pulled some of those Zionist soldiers from the tanks. I mean, people saw all those videos. So that was a big win from day one for the resistance. Because we need to understand, people, when they see war, try to see, okay, how many tanks they lost, how many people they lost, how many people they lost on the other side. That's not how war is measured. Of course, it's tragedies when you have this lost, tragedy for whatever ummah that lost, and tragedies for the families and so on and so forth. What you need to understand, what is the political result of this war? That's how you measure what had happened. I know someone will say, but those Zionists killed more than 15, 16,000, and some of those who are under the rubble can reach to 20, and more than 35,000 injured. Yes, that's a tragedy definitely for the ummah. But all what I'm saying, at the end, what will be the result of this war? I'll give an example. Egypt got into a war with the Zionists in 1973, and the ummah thought that, there is hope. The Prime Minister of Jordan at the time, he said, this war, هذه الحرب حرب تحريك لا حرب تحرير. This war is a war that's gonna move the peace process, have nothing to do with liberating the land. This is the Prime Minister, because he knew what's going on. And indeed, he was right. Suddenly, after this, Sadat went to Jerusalem, struck a Camp David agreement with the Zionists, and Egypt was out of this battle with the Zionists. And unfortunately, it's another tragedy that they go in between the Zionists and the Hamas are the Egyptian government. And the insult that they give to the Hamas and the people of Palestine, they do not deal with them with the foreign minister. Do you know who deal with the Hamas? The head of the Mukhabarat. So Mukhabarat of Egypt, the intelligence of Egypt, is in charge of Gaza. So this is just shows that what was tragic was a result of something that the Ummah hoped, that something will come out of this attack on the Zionists in 1973. It turned to be a tragedy that Egypt got out of this whole equation. And in fact, Sadat, when he went there, he had a plan to finish the so-called Palestinian issue. And he had a proposal. And guess who did not accept it and refuse it? Menachem Begin. If Menachem Begin have accepted Sadat, he had a package for Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and the Palestinian issue. Menachem Begin said no. Remember Menachem Begin? We said last week, Einstein said about him, and his people, those people are Nazis and fascists. This is a letter that Einstein wrote in 1948 to the New York Times with about 20 Jewish intellectuals. And Menachem Begin eventually became prime minister. And who inherited that Likud is Netanyahu and company. The term fascists, Nazis still, and those people do not care about the life of the Jews or the Muslims or the Christians. So now comes to the lies. We said that the resistance from day one bought those videos that showed their achievement. And now we know that what the Zionists started from day one spreading those lies, it now comes clearly from the Haaretz newspaper, which turned their heads and they became so upset with the newspaper for saying that many of those civilians, Israeli civilians, in the colonial settlements around Gaza were killed by Israeli fires. Basically, there were helicopters in the air shooting, because there is this, the Israelis, they have this war doctrine. It's called Hannibal. What it is you kill your own soldiers so they will not become prisoners of war. This is very well known. The Israelis have adopted long time ago. And they regretted that they could not do it with Shalit. Shalit at the time was a soldier who left his vehicle and was captured by Hamas. In fact, in the year 2014, when there was war, some of those Jewish soldiers were trapped and they were on the edge of being taken as prisoners by Hamas. The Israeli army wiped them out and killed all of them. Because basically, they know that if they take one Israeli soldier, eventually, Hamas, what did they do with Shalit? They get 1,500 prisoners for Shalit. So, the narration of why those who were killed are different. Because it looks like the instruction that Hamas, the resistance and Islamic Jihad gave to their people is that don't run, walk. Because if you run, they will think that they will bomb you. If you walk, they think that you are just one of their own. So what had happened, they were walking with the rest, and those planes and the tank shells hit people and hit homes, and it was a tragic to the Zionists, no doubt, in this regard. But the lie until this week was that they killed civilians, they killed civilians, they killed civilians, they killed babies, they did this to women, and all of it is basically lies. Yes, there were, when the resistance finished their job and killed those soldiers, they did go back to Gaza with whoever they got with them. And some of the people of Gaza, civilians, when they saw the doors open, they went to the settlements, those Palestinian settlements, and some of them tried to look for something booties to take. And those people end up burning some of the houses that some of those families, when they asked to leave, get out of your homes, nobody responded. They were in secure rooms that they considered secure rooms. They burned some of the houses and some of the people were killed. But the bulk of those who were killed, civilians, were killed by the Zionists themselves. Now this lie about the babies. So basically, there's this settler who was with the Israeli team that was touring the settlements. So when they finished, he came to the TV station, representative there, and said, we have seen those babies that they were beheaded, their heads were in one place and their bodies were in another place. The TV station broadcasted that one, and that guy started laughing. He made it up. And this Israeli journalist went into Twitter, which is now called X, and he said, baseless. This is an Israeli journalist. He said, baseless. I was with them all the time. We have not seen any baby that's killed. Now, Netanyahu took this story and announced it to the world, and this crazy old man in the White House repeated the same lie. In fact, he said, when you see babies, giving people the impression that he saw babies being, which was absolutely nonsense, that the White House came after less than an hour to say that the president did not see any pictures. But he repeated the lies. And you have to understand there are three major publications that are more Zionist than the Zionist media. More Zionist than the Zionist media. In fact, when you read them, it's as if Netanyahu and Smotrich and Ibn Gvir is speaking. One is called the Washington Examiner. Lots of lies, filth, deception. It's just as if Netanyahu is talking, and lies. Washington Examiner, Newsweek. Newsweek, when it stopped publication on paper, was bought by Zionists, and it's even, as I said, worse than the Zionist media. And the British Telegraph. The British Telegraph. Those three Western outlets, they are in fact worse than the Jewish media in the US or the Zionist media in Palestine. So I really do not even bother of opening them and giving them a click on that, giving them an audience. But you would see them at MSN when they bring a mix of videos, a mix of news, that the Washington Examiner, Newsweek, and the Telegraph. You do not trust a word of what they say. In the Arab word, of course, Al-Arabiya, which is called the Ibriya, and Al-Hadath, this is the Saudi media, by the way. This is how sad this is the Saudi media. And you will find them, like Dawood al-Shiryan and company, those hypocrites, crying on the people who are killed in Gaza. Oh, mashallah. So now you waked up to this. How many Yemenis did you kill? How many Yemenis you killed? This war in Yemen that has been going for now, what is it, 6-7 years? That Ibn Salman thought, this will be a quick trip. We just go there and take care of things. They have been fighting for 7 years and killing thousands upon thousands. And now they are crying. Not that crying on the people of Gaza that the Zionists killed them. No. They are saying Hamas is responsible for the people of Gaza being killed. I mean, look, this is Saudi media. This is Saudi figures. Saudi figures. Dawood al-Shiryan used to be heading one of those major news outlets at the different points, one after the other. This is what makes the Zionists happy. That you have Arab media repeating their lies and repeating their point of view and getting them to be interviewed and giving them a chance to push their propaganda. Now, when this thing did not fly with those babies, suddenly it went silent, as if it did not exist. But the point is, millions of people have seen it, and it just got in their mind that those people there have done this and this and that. Because how many people will go and be careful, is this true or not? Is this true or not? Now, come to the issue of how the war is being conducted. Ehud Barak, who was the prime minister at one point, said 3 days ago, to the CNN, we built the tunnels under the hospitals. And of course, the CNN anchor was shocked. They have been saying, Hamas built those, for their leadership, control and command. They built this, and this guy comes and said, no, our government built it. And of course, there was an uproar among the Zionists in Palestine. How could you do this? We are in the middle of the war, and you are giving them. We have been telling the world that they built, they did this under the hospitals. Now you come and say we are the ones who built it. Another one of those lies is the hospitals is major command and control for Hamas. They went and they did not find a single Hamas member. And some of those lies were so clear that were laughable. And one of them, the Israeli media have put, the Israeli army, has put this, where this guy goes into a tunnel under the hospital, and this was built by the Israelis in the old days when they controlled Gaza. And he said, look, they have here this thing on the wall that have the names of the Hamas fighters who were guarding the hostages. So the hostages were in this room, and this is the name of the Hamas guards. Now, for his stupidity, he have shown the world what is written on this, wall. What was written, it was a calendar. It says Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and next to it is a date like 11/7, 11/8, 11/9, 11. That when the Arabs, of course, they could read. Those who could read, of course, said, what's this? And then the Israeli army took it away. In another instance, they brought this computer that's supposed to have all the information, and they had 5 CDs. Now the computer brand does not take CDs. This is yet something that they removed. So basically, when you are at war, lies are a very important aspect of the war, but they have done it poorly, and then sometimes when the U.S. unfortunately repeated those lies, they made it to many people before it was realized that it's a lie. Now some people come and say, what about the casualty? Say what? Yeah, those MRI machines or what have you. The point is that you tell the world, we need to occupy the hospital. We need to take over the hospital because the control and command is there. The hostages are there and this and there. And you go in front of the whole world and there was zilch. Absolutely nothing. And even the Israeli media said, they did not make the case. CNN and others said they claim, but we could not verify it. So, because they realize part of the war is lies and lies and lies. But there are differences between lies that are crystal clear lies, that everybody sees that those are lies, and between a lie that can be passed and convince the people. Because this war is not about how many people are killed here and there. It's about what is the outcome. And if the whole world, as we have seen in many capitals, in fact, Germany, Germany, of course, the Jews keep reminding Germany, you did the Holocaust. You did the Holocaust. So now Germany says anybody who's a member of Hamas or a supporter of Hamas, they're going to criminalize it. Now, those are not buying into the lies. Germany is much smarter to believe those, cheap lying Zionists. They do not believe them, but they do not want to keep reminded, you are the one who did this. Now, until now, Germany each year paid the Zionists tons of money for the Holocaust. Until today. Until today, in this regard. Now, a question that's usually being asked these days, who to believe in terms of the casualties? Now, Biden made a major sin when he came and said that I do not believe the numbers of those who are killed. I mean, that was for somebody like him who is the president of the only superpower in the world used to be, and now we have three competing, while still the US is number one. It's with their stupidity in Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years that Russia and China were able to build a competition for them. So Biden comes out and said, I do not believe those numbers. Well, later on, the White House came and said so many people were killed. They did not want to say that he's mkharfan, he lost it. So they came and just made the statement in this regard. I mean, the whole world seeing more than 50% of the building in Gaza are destroyed. And they could see those, you have building that goes into 30 floors and so on and so forth come to the ground. And we have seen people, real people giving, their own stories and their own children and this and that. So to come and question those numbers by the President of the United States was yet another low for this country. Another aspect, as I said, is the casualties, meaning the Israeli casualties and the Hamas shuhada. In this regard, you asked, where are the true numbers? I would say it's anywhere between what the Israelis are claiming and what the Hamas is saying. The Hamas, the Zionists until now or until 2 days ago, they said about 80 of their soldiers were killed in Gaza after October 7. And they came and revised the numbers for October 7. They said not 1,400 were killed, 1,200 were killed. And then we ought to ask this question. If 1,200 only were killed, how many soldiers were protecting Gaza on October 6? Because according to the Zionists, they said 450 soldiers and 35 policemen were killed on October 7. And of course, that's utter nonsense. You only have 350 soldiers protecting all the borders of Gaza from the north to the south. At least there were 1,000 people there, at least. At least from what was seen with those three bases, 21 military points, and the entrances to Gaza, Eretz, which was taken over by Hamas in 2 minutes, and killing those soldiers in there. So if you are saying only 1,200 people were killed, it sounds much more logical that 800 to 900 soldiers were either killed or taken hostages, and 200 civilians were killed mostly by the Israeli fire from the tanks and from the air. But the lie have to continue. Even after Haaretz said the army killed them, they keep repeating, Hamas killed those, Hamas killed those, Hamas killed those innocent people, and so on and so forth. There is no doubt that the army, the Zionist army is hurting. And there's no doubt that they are losing lots of their equipment, and you have seen the picture. There's no doubt that they are using lots of soldiers. There's no doubt about this. They never experienced in a war something like this, even during the invasion of Lebanon in 1982. when Hezbollah, after months of Lebanon occupation and invasion until they get to Beirut, at the end about 600 Zionists were killed. And if indeed that the losses in the army are such that the morale is very down and people do not want to fight the war and so on and so forth, then we will see an extension of this temporary agreement for 4 days, and it may translate to something on a longer term. However, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because the Zionists cannot leave the situation as is. That's why Gallant today, the defense minister, said there'll be another 2-3 months of war. And for him just to throw this number and this statement is not something that, you know, is for the entertainment of the Zionists in Palestine. Because they are preparing their own population that this war will resume. And they are preparing their army that this war will resume. By the way, in 1973, when this war took, you know, time, many cases, the Egyptian army found that the Israeli soldiers in the tanks were tied so that they would not fled the tanks. Because those people, why they went to Palestine? They think, you know, we are there in control. You know, we can abuse people just the way that Europeans and Americans abuse them. You know, remember the first ship that came to the US full of Jews was returned to Europe. And Europe and the US have a Jewish problem. So when they talk about anti-Semitism, yes. I mean, you know, those supporters of Trump, there's no doubt the supporters of Trump, they are anti-Semitic. Trump is anti-Semitic himself. Although he married his daughter to this cheap Zionist. But he did it because this guy's father is rich. He married to the money, not to the religion. In this regard. So yeah, what we need to realize, the Muslims do not have a Jewish problem. Muslims do not have a Jewish problem. Historically, whenever the Jews have a problem anywhere, they go to the Muslims because they know the Muslims will protect them as a matter of principle. Who allowed the Jews anywhere to go back to Jerusalem? It was Sayyidina Umar. The Romans have prevented the Jews of going to the city, entering the city or living. And when they tried to make a condition on Sayyidina Umar that the Jews should not enter Jerusalem, he said, no, they will be allowed to enter it, but they will not live in it. That was the commitment that Umar radiallahu anhu made about Jews in Jerusalem. And when the Jews were kicked out of Spain, large numbers, there were so many Christians country around the world. They ended up going where? To the Muslims, to the Ottomans, because they know under Islam, if you live under the Islamic State, you have a space. Being a Jew, being a Christian, being a Druze, being even those who worship the devil in Iraq, devil worshippers, they have been there for many years and they are still there. Devil worshippers, Islam gave them a space. So Muslims do not have a Jewish problem. But the lies is those people want to kill us. Those people want to maim us. Those people are after us. Those people. Well, those people that took care of you at one point, their great-grandparents took care of your great-grandparents. Before, and you know, just briefly, even after 1948, there were so many Arab Jews living in Arab countries. Yemeni Jews, Iraqi Jews, Palestinian Jews, Egyptian Jews. And this attitude of willing to kill their own people is not new. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, I guess, just go to Google and Google this thing, Levon affair, Levon, L-E-V-O-N. What is Levon affair? In the 1950s, The Israeli intelligence bombed synagogues in Egypt. Not masajid, not churches, they bombed synagogues. This is the Israeli Mossad, the Israeli intelligence bombed synagogues in Egypt, and they claim that the Egyptians are the one who did it because they want to get the Jews to leave Egypt and go and live in Palestine. And it was discovered. I mean, this is a fact. Nobody disputed. Just go and see it. Levon affair. So now when they come, they try to tell their own people, the hostages is an important issue. That's a lie. Absolute lie. To the leadership, the hostages is absolutely a no issue. And this minister, with an interview, they asked him, is there an option to throw a nuclear bomb on Gaza? He said, yeah, that's an option. They said, what about the hostages? I mean, look how low is this. 2.3 million Palestinians, Muslims and Christians, they are not an issue. Throwing a nuclear bomb, how about the 248 hostages? He said, well, in the war, you're going to have casualties. So they are not hiding it. They don't care about hostages. When a brother told me it's good that they have those hostages in Gaza because the Israelis will not attack, I said, you do not know what you're talking about. I said, just go to Levon affair and you will see they do not care even about the Jewish lives. This Hannibal thing is kill your own soldiers rather than being captured and negotiated for release of other hostages. Now, with this, and we'll close inshallah with this one, with this recent agreement, of course, they will try to give an impression that this is something good for the Zionists. It's not. It's not. And still, go and you will see what those right-wingers are saying, that this is a loss. This is a big loss. How could you do this? Well, they have fought for a month and a half, and they could not free one out of 250. One person they could not free out of 250. After a month and a half, they thought, get to the hospitals. Get to the hospitals, and everything is there. There was nothing. As we said, zilch. So basically, with this pressure inside and many countries around the world pressuring in this, they came to this agreement. As I said, I do not see it, that this thing will be extended for more than 10, 15 days, because eventually those Zionists will need to go back and continue what they have done all those years, kill Muslims in Lebanon and in Palestine and in Egypt and in Syria and Jordan. I mean, this is their so-called moral code. If you are a non-Zionist, your blood is halal. And this is not the way that the Ummah have treated them throughout history. Jazakumullah khair for being patient listeners. We'll just take one or two questions, inshallah, for the sake of time. Yes, Muhammad. Allah barak fik. Yeah, the brother asking that I mentioned during the presentation that the casualties of the war are an important aspect for each nation and for each people. But I said that's not how you measure the success of either side. At the end, what is the political implication of this? And he's asking, how do we see the end of this war? First of all, it's not straightforward to predict this for different reasons. Because the Zionists have decided that since the Arab countries have normalized the relations, Morocco, Sudan, Egypt, Jordan, UAE, Bahrain, and so on and so forth, and Muslim countries like Chad, Turkey, and others in this regard, they thought this Palestinian issue is finished. And in fact, in the last 3 elections, we did not hear much about the issue of Palestine in the Israeli election because they thought it's finished, خلاص. And that's why I said October 7 is very significant. So I do not see it what the US is trying to do. The US is saying now Gaza should be under some kind of Palestinian authority, either on the short term or the long term. And this should form the 2-state solution, that Gaza and the West Bank. And of course, Netanyahu and company, they will not buy any of it. The only way that there will be a Palestinian state if the US take its political cover of the Zionists. And I do not see this happening in the next 10, 20 years. So those who are promoting that out of this war will come a political solution and there will be 2 states, I don't think they know what they're talking about. What seems to be possible is there will be still some kind of Hamas influence in Gaza. I don't see how they're gonna put an end to it. I mean, even if you wiped the upper echelon of the leadership, and they did before, as I said, 23, 24 years ago, from Sheikh Ahmed Yassin to Rantisi to Salah Shahada, Allah yarhamhum, those shuhada, they were the top echelon of the leadership. And here we are back, much stronger than before, much organized than before. I mean, the fact that they could hide 250 people in Gaza when the Zionists destroy half of the buildings and they could not get to one of them is just a testimony to their sophistication. So, right. So it seems to me that there will be some kind of an agreement that would accept what the US at the end will push for. The Netanyahu said we will be there for a long time and we will have the security, and immediately the US said we are not going to go for reoccupation of Gaza. And they came very strong, and from Biden down. And this same other cheap guy, the Blinken, who went to Palestine from day one and said, I come here as a Jew. I mean, you are the Secretary of State of the United States. You are not there as a Jew. But this guy even come and say, no, we will not allow a reoccupation of Gaza. Now, what the Netanyahu and company is saying, basically, they want to bring UAE. Because UAE are tools. I mean, imagine Netanyahu is asking Ibn Zayed to bring a hospital, a UAE hospital to Gaza. Of course, he want to bring agents to see what's going on. So the Israelis, their aim is we will be there taking security, and Mohammed Dahlan, UAE, maybe some Egyptians come and take that, and maybe the UN will have a political cover. That's what they are dreaming of. I don't think any of these plans will materialize on the short term. But if the US push, the US have been talking about 2-state solution, and this has been, to tell you the truth, a drug that the Palestinian Authority have drugged the Ummah with, that 2-state solution are coming, and let's just negotiate and negotiate and negotiate. There are 850,000 settlers in the West Bank living among 2 million Palestinians. What 2 states you are talking about? What's the other issue?
I have another question, which was, have you been pleasantly surprised by any of the Muslim government's responses?
Yes. Have you been surprised by the responses of the Muslim governments? I would say the most surprising was Turkey. Because Turkey have stood with Muslim issues all those years. From Somalia to Palestine to Azerbaijan to the Rohingya and to Muslims in China. They have stood with Muslim issues. But it was very disappointing before this October 7, that Erdogan would go and have a warm handshake with Netanyahu and invite him to visit Turkey, and said he will visit, Israel, quote unquote, Palestine, in this regard. Because at that point, when Erdogan saw that the Arab governments are going one after the other, and the Israelis are, having the second best startup in the world, and the US is support of them, and countries from Sudan to Morocco to others coming with them. I think at that point, although Erdogan is not, he is a seasoned politician, he thought that Israel have it. And there's no point of me just taking a stand of this cold relationship. So he thought, let's warm the relationship, because we had enough, we have many of our issues that we need to deal with. I mean, that was totally disappointed. When this thing happened, he tried initially to say, we should stop the hostilities and this and this and that. And then when he saw that this thing is really for real, and Hamas is standing its ground, and Iran and Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen trying to take advantage of this situation and promoting themselves as the one who is supporting this versus the US and Europe who are supporting the Zionists, at that moment he took another stand. And he said, Hamas is not a terrorist organization, Israel is a terrorist, and he started, this. So that was surprising, why he waited so long, why he at one point accepted this. Secondly, the stand of the Emiratis government and the Saudi government are the worst. No doubt about it. They are conspiring with the Zionists against Hamas. Let me repeat this for the record. The UAE government and the Saudi government are conspiring with the Zionists now against Hamas. Before, they wanted the Zionists to finish Hamas. This is before October 7. They have pushed for that. And it was Ibn Salman and the criminals of Al Saud, there are good among them people, but the criminals are in charge now, who pushed this Emirates and Bahrain to have this agreement with the Zionists to open the door for them. And they were on the verge. Muhammad ibn Salman said, we have been talking for a long time. Each day we have an improvement. This thing blew up in their face. So, is it surprising? Well, somebody like Ibn Salman, who is turning Al-Medina and Riyadh and others as a places for entertainment with all this corruption, putting the sheikhs who stand for the truth in the prison and preventing people even from making dua to Gaza. Dua, you cannot make a dua for Gaza in Saudi in public. Of course, if they can't go to your home and see what's in your nafs, they will even follow you. But they cannot read what's inside you. No sheikh can make a dua for Gaza. In fact, I saw one of those imams leading the salah. He could not make dua, so he read some verses relevant to the situation. And he started crying. He could not continue. He said, Allahu Akbar. I mean, this is to show that there are some of those, but there are many who sold themselves. And yes, let me just build on your question. One of the worst things that I saw is those scholars for dollars. Where is Hamza Yusuf? Where is Hamza Yusuf? Why Umar Sulaiman and Yasser al-Qadi are taking the thing? Where's Hamza Yusuf? And you saw the sheikhs of Saudi, Ibn Bayya, who's the teacher of this Hamza, because after they took the money of the Emirat, the UAE, those guys are becoming just mouthpieces. Where is he? Did anybody see a khutbah? Did anybody see a statement? Maybe, maybe in the White House, just like when the thing took place with George Bush. And then those so-called Salafi sheikhs. So this is the Sufi part. Let's go to the other part, the Salafi sheikhs. So you have them in Saudi saying basically, who are you to talk about Gaza? Only the Wali al-Amr, he knows. Well, the Wali al-Amr is selling you and selling the Ummah and selling Palestine to the Jews. What are we talking about? And this Salafi sheikh from Egypt, He come criticizing Abu Ubaidah. Look, wallahi, look at this. He said, Abu Ubaidah, teach the people of Gaza Tawheed. Teach the people of Gaza who is their Lord, what is their deen, and who is his prophet. Who is their prophet? He said, teach the women of Gaza hijab. I mean, I have seen so many videos. I have not seen a single woman in Gaza uncovered. What you guys are talking about? But those are scholars for dollars. Scholars for dollars. Take it from Hamza Yusuf to Ben Bayya to the Saudi sheikhs. You know, you have this Sheikh Zdais. He used to stand, you know, at the time of King Abdullah and make dua for Palestine. No more. He will not even utter a word in this regard. So Palestine has exposed those people and what they stand for. They are not scholars for the deen and for the ummah. They are scholars for dollars. No more, no less. And we honor and make dua and respect for all those sheikhs that are in the Saudi prisons because they stood for what this deen stands for. Final question, inshallah.
Inshallah, it's an easy one. I just wanted some recommendations, and you told us some of the news outlets that you know are liars and are more Zionist than the Zionists. What are some news outlets or sources that you would recommend us to go to?
Yeah, the brother saying we mentioned in the discussion the news outlets in the West that are mouthpieces for the Zionists. And by the way, I did not mention any Zionist publication or Jewish publication in America because they are much better than the three that I mentioned, the Washington Examiner and the Newsweek and the British Telegraph. As far as the Arabic, I would say there is Al Jazeera, there is Arabi 21. It's called Arabi 21. This is Arabic. And there's Arab 48. Those are three. There's Quds Press. And of course, there is the TV station that they consider the mouthpiece of Hamas. So those are Arabic outlets that give the perspective of what's going on from, you know, our perspective as Muslims, as people who are members of this ummah, want the best for Palestine in this regard. In English, there's Al Jazeera, and there's Politico, the Huffington Post. Those are basically some of those sources. CNN is mixed. They repeat the Jewish lies when they, you know, realize that, but, you know, sometimes they do have some positive coverage. And also the New York Times, on and off, they do have some good articles, but not always. They repeated the lies about who bombed the hospital and then they took it back. Washington Post, of course, and BBC, English and Arabic, you know, they are more reasonable than others, but they are not really, you know, for us. LA Times is another source that is more balanced. Now, somebody will say, well, they do publish. Yeah. I'm not saying those are presenting the Islamic perspective or what's going on in Palestine.
I think if you want to get an Israeli perspective from an accuracy point of view, you can check out a couple of them, then get Haaretz, and you can do some validation. Okay, if Haaretz is covering something, then maybe there is some element of.
Yeah. As far as the, you know, press within occupied Palestine, in this regard, yeah, there's alquds.com, which is the newspaper local to Jerusalem in Arabic. And for the, you know, on the English, there's the Times of Israel. It's more, in fact, balanced than Haaretz. They are leftist journalists in there. Jerusalem Post, J-Post, no, this is right-winger. But I really try to make it at least a day, in each day, once or twice, to see what's on Haaretz and what's on the Times of Israel. Times of Israel have an English and Arabic and Hebrew. The English is much better than the Arabic because the Arabic, it's usually days behind in terms of translation. But they give you a perspective of what's in there, and you will find Jewish propaganda there. There's no doubt, but there are some of the best articles that are written, like the one that they expose what the Zionist government have done by killing its own people. I mean, this came from Haaretz. Jerusalem Post, you will not see it. But at the same time, you will see in Haaretz, even as of today, yesterday, the day before, they are trying to say why the world is not responding to the women who were attacked, although now everybody knows there was no such thing that what they talk about. But, you know, I mean, they are not giving you our perspective. They are a Jewish newspaper and giving their perspective, but they are to the left. So I would say that once in a while, once a day, if you see it, it will add. No, we said that was the last question with Khalid. Jazakallah khair, barakallah fiqh. For the sake of time, inshallah. We'll see you next Thursday. Please try to come tomorrow. We're going to have a meeting with the families of the people who were shaheeds in Gaza, our local brothers and sisters here to tell you their stories. Those are not media stories. Those are not from the newspaper or the social media. They're going to give you their stories of their families, their parents, their brothers, their cousins from Gaza tomorrow after, inshallah, Salatul Isha. Jazakumullahu khair wa barakallahu fikum.